This is the program that shows you the side of police chase videos they didn't want you to see. Bungled arrests, kamikaze crooks and cop-based carnage of all kinds. Welcome to Cops Uncut, the real car crash TV. Coming up on Cops Uncut. This drunk driver flies off the wagon and off the road.
I don't think you were driving it.
This teenager gets to drive before passing her test. And the Mexican Doctor Who drives a pickup truck TARDIS.
Taking off again.
Keep your eyes peeled for the Mercury up ahead, which is being driven by a Mr. Willie Gordon. Just now, Sergeant Newsom pulled him over on a routine stop, but for some reason, Gordon didn't like the idea of coming face to face with the fuzz and pulled away before Newsom had a chance to question him. Now they're racing through the rush hour at speeds of up to 100, and the next traffic stop probably won't be so routine. With so many other cars around, it's difficult for Newsom to see exactly who he's chasing, so he must be glad when backup finally arrives. Now he's got another patrol car and another pair of eyes to help him out, although Gordon isn't going to be intimidated by the extra manpower. He puts his foot down and takes the racing line along the inside lane. Out here in the suburbs, there are enough commuters on hand to make for a problematic pursuit. There are also plenty of trucks, and before long, Newsom and his colleagues are in a spot of bother. There may be 4 lanes to choose from, but at the moment they're completely clogged. So much for moving aside when you spot a police car in your mirror. When they finally find a way through, Gordon is nowhere to be seen, so at the next interchange, our 2 sergeants have to split up and see who gets lucky. As it happens, Newsom guesses right by turning left, and after some nifty moves of his own, he catches up with his crook a little further down the road. Gordon must have thought he'd given them the slip. And when he sees the flashing blue lights approaching, he almost swerves his motor into the median. Sergeant Newsom doesn't get distracted by a bit of dust, and now the chase is back on. He isn't going to let Gordon disappear again, even if he does decide to jump a red light. Colour blindness seems to be an ongoing problem because it isn't long before Gordon shoots another intersection. News is coming through on the radio that the stress of this chase has caused Newsom's colleague to have an asthma attack, which gives him even more incentive to get Gordon off the road. But as so often happens, if you stick to your suspect for long enough, they'll do all the hard work for you. Gordon momentarily forgets which side of the road he's supposed to be on, and before he knows it, there are 2 lanes of cars blocking him in. Not wanting to hang around for the road rage, Gordon and his passenger make a dash for it. But they were taken into custody just a few blocks away and made to apologise in person to every single motorist whose afternoon they'd made a mess of. Still to come in part 1. This drunk driver aims for the road and misses. And this cop thinks he's found a long-grain lawbreaker.
Man, that's right.
It wasn't me, Gov.
Hey, get back in that fucking car. Sit down. Sit down.
Corporal Savage here is having a spot of bother. He's trying to keep the occupants of this truck under control, but they're a little hyperactive. And if you think the passenger looks young, you wait until you see who steps out of the driver's seat. She's behaving like such a space cadet, she might as well be blonde. And when it comes to questioning her, Savage has to put on his schoolmaster's hat. Elementary school, that is.
How you doing? What's your name?
Kelly.
Kelly. Okay. I'm Corporal Savage from the Sheriff's Office. Okay? Now, one thing I want to ask you a question, and I think you need to be perfectly honest with me. Okay? It's very important that you be honest with me because I don't like a person to tell me a story.
And Kelly answers him in pure teen speak. You see, she isn't used to pausing for breath between sentences.
Things happen, okay? I don't think you were driving that truck just now.
I was, because when we got up there, his stomach was hurting and he asked me to drive, and I kind of told him I didn't want to, but then he told me that his stomach was hurting really bad, so I drove the car. I was the one driving.
Roughly translated, that means yes, I was, but Savage is still suspicious. He thinks that Kelly is taking the rap for her boyfriend.
He's 13 years old, and he let you drive the truck.
Yes, in a new low for lame excuses, the man now being pulled from the passenger seat is willing to say, "It wasn't me, Gov, it was my 13-year-old girlfriend." Worried about picking up a drunk driving charge when the cops pulled him over, this guy forced his girl to swap seats, although it has to be said, letting her take the wheel of a pickup isn't going to look particularly good on his CV either. And once Corporal Savage's colleagues begin to search the vehicle, it looks like these young lovers are both in trouble.
Hey, don't even do it.
The suspect knows exactly what's coming, and as a result, he starts to get itchy feet.
Put your other hand behind your back.
Time to break out the handcuffs and dish out a little discipline.
Hey, put your hand behind your back.
The only problem they've got is finding a pair of cuffs small enough to fit him.
They too big.
Once the correct wrist size has been located, he thrusts out his beer belly and allows them to tie his hands. Now he's been restrained, he tries to take a seat on the tailgate. But now isn't the time for this crook to get comfortable when the evidence is about to be laid out in front of him.
What you got, man? Lay it on the top of the hood. Camera's rolling.
In the dark, it's difficult to tell what they've found, and at first, Savage thinks he's got a very different kind of smuggler on his hands.
Man, that's right. Yeah. Hold on a minute. That's a joint. Yeah. Coke. Okay.
But that's not Uncle Ben's boil in the bag, and our babyface with a beer gut is going down.
Okay.
This compulsive liar did so many things wrong, he wasn't sure what to cover up first. If it wasn't drink driving, it was drug taking, and although he tried to get his girlfriend in trouble, given her age, she might be the one who ends up sending him down.
Okay.
You may want to lean a little to the right while watching this next clip, but despite their camera being skew-whiff, these cops are seeing straight when they choose to run down an innocuous-looking white pickup. Yes, the sun is out and the sky is blue, which means that we must be down south. And the further south you go in the States, the more likely you are to bump into a certain kind of tourist. They're the kind who come for a working holiday, but when the holiday part runs out, they tend to stick around and just carry on working. Why is it, though, that Mexicans on the run from the cops never seem able to wait until their car comes to a stop before they jump out and run away? As usual, the door opens, the driver slows down, and his passenger lands in a heap on the floor. While the first cop gives chase, another cruiser turns up to join in the fun, just in time for this little lady to pop up and immediately leg it. Our second cop doesn't want to waste his energy jogging and decides to stick around and double-check the truck instead. He knows that whoever hitched a ride in this pickup hasn't necessarily been sitting comfortably. In any case, getting found out while you're being driven across the border is probably a blessing in disguise. On the one hand, you don't get to start a new life in the land of dreams. On the other, you do get some relief from being cooped up for hours on end with your head jammed against a petrol can. This guy must be glad to get some fresh air, even if the first person he sees is wearing a uniform. I'm sure everyone's heard the joke about how many elephants you can fit in a Mini, 2 in the front and 2 in the back, of course. Well, here's a new one. How many Mexicans can you fit in the back of a pickup? Give up? I'll tell you. 2 in the front and approximately 17 in the back. Having failed in their bid for freedom, these ill-fated immigrants are set for a return journey. This time the seats will be comfortable and there'll be a beautiful view from the window. Only trouble is, there'll be bars on it.
Taking off again.
It may have been snakebite behind the bike sheds at a school disco or cheap wine behind the hotel on a package holiday, but everyone remembers the first time they got drunk. As we get older though, hangovers, vomiting and stealing traffic cones start to lose their appeal, and most of us learn to take a more moderate approach to alcohol. Not so the driver of this pickup. From that first taste of white lightning, he was hooked, and not only that, but he's always preferred to combine drinking with his other favourite hobby. At just 21 years old, he's already had 6 convictions for driving under the influence. And with the familiar sight of flashing blue lights in his mirror, it looks like we're well on the way to number 7. All he needs now is a decent place to park, which can be a little tricky when you're tanked up. Normally, someone as young as this would be a good bet to outrun a cop, but alcohol isn't classified as a performance-enhancing drug, and judging by how quickly he's recaptured, you can see why. Time to sober up and get his suit dry cleaned for another court appearance. These Californian cops are on the way to meet a 19-year-old who's been brandishing a rifle and smashing car windows. And when they arrive on the scene, it looks like he's angling for a shootout as he cocks the bolt on his weapon and starts walking straight towards them.
He's got a rifle. Right there. Hey, put the rifle down! Put the rifle down! Put it down! Put it down! Put it down!
It takes a couple of direct hits to stop him in his tracks. As the troopers move in, the bloke's obviously in some discomfort.
Don't move. Don't move.
Although it has to be said he's hardly likely to move now.
Yes.
Fortunately, he made a full recovery from his injuries and pleaded no contest in court to 3 felonies. But there's a twist in the tale, because he obviously didn't think it had been a fair fight and later tried to sue the cops. Where there's blame, there's a claim, so even if you point a gun at the police, you can still take them to court if they opened fire first. Perhaps he tried to claim unfair use of firearms, or perhaps he just wanted to reserve his God-given right to wander the streets of America brandishing a shooter. In the end, this adolescent assassin didn't win any damages, and now he knows what it's like to take a bullet or 2. He won't be confronting the cops anytime soon.
Taking off again.
Still to come in part 2. These cops decide to sit on their suspect, and this homeboy holds on to his beer.
Taking off again.
What do you do when the cops are on your tail and you need to hide your stash? You could stick it in your shoe, stick it in a condom and swallow it, or stick it where the sun don't shine. These dealers don't want to get caught with the evidence, so they decide to hurl their hash out the window. And here it comes now, bouncing along the hard shoulder, all 7 ounces of the stuff. Now it's been caught on camera, all the cops need to do is arrest the guys who threw it. But despite having failed to discreetly dispose of a small plastic bag, they still think they can put themselves out of sight. This haulage yard would be a good hiding place if only the police weren't driving about 2 feet behind them. And now they're here, it isn't going to be easy finding the exit again. Was it between these two identical trucks, or these two identical trucks? Or perhaps behind this line of identical trucks? They do eventually find a way out, but whilst these drug runners have been dithering, the cops have been on the radio calling in some support. And a little further on, there's one truck in the road that isn't going to let them overtake. It's big, it's black, it's got flashing lights on the top, and a couple more officers inside eager to make an arrest. These guys know the game is up, although they're probably still hoping that no one saw them dispose of the evidence. In fact, if they come back in a few weeks, perhaps there'll be a plant growing at the side of the road and the new crop will be ready for harvest. In the meantime, the cops aren't taking any risks. They always assume a suspect is dangerous until he's managed to prove otherwise. And when they get them back to the station, these marijuana mercenaries had better be prepared for a full cavity search.
Taking off again.
Just like a football match, sometimes a traffic stop can be a game of two halves.
Hello, ma'am. I see driver's license, please.
This cop has been on the trail of a speeding motorist, and now he's pulled her over. The next 5 minutes of his shift are all mapped out. First of all, he'll give her a lecture on road safety. Then he'll write her out a ticket, and finally, he'll send her on her way with a friendly smile.
Mr. Green, the reason I stopped is I've been behind you since Racine Road. I've clocked you 4 different times during that time. You were in a 45 zone, also a 55 zone. Your average speed was 71 miles per hour till you came up behind this truck here a while ago.
But if you're a traffic trooper, the simple act of stopping at the side of the road can have all sorts of unexpected consequences, even on an evening as peaceful as this. Yes, it's Revenge of the Rubberneckers. Off-screen to our left, the driver of a pickup was so busy looking at this cop that he forgot to look at this car. And now, instead of a speeding ticket, the officer's got a full-blown accident on his hands. Fortunately for him, Mrs. Blaine here happens to be a nurse, and she must be thinking her luck is in.
It's not involving my vehicle, but 2 vehicles, be serious PI, EMS and fire, 1039. Here you go, man.
In all this commotion, it's just possible that her little misdemeanor will be forgotten about, particularly if she manages to come up with some first-class first aid.
Down on 421, communication.
She's still a little shaken and can't decide whether to help out straight away or go back to the car and root around for her jacket.
No, sir, okay.
By now, people are stopping to help, and other motorists are driving carefully past the scene.
They got the EMS and fire on the way.
So the next time you're driving along and you see the cops going about their business, remember to keep at least half an eye on the road. Otherwise, you could end up with an airbag in your face, a reshaped front fender, and all 3 emergency services helping you out. As policemen, you sometimes have a tendency to panic. You get a call about a reckless driver and act like World War III is underway. Within seconds, every patrol car within a 5-mile radius is racing to the scene at top speed with their sirens blaring. But there's often no need to overreact, and your felon will turn out to be a lot less frightening than you thought. What you assumed was a souped-up sports car turns out to be a rust bucket, and that crazed axeman in the driver's seat, well, she's just a shoplifting granny with a frozen turkey under her bobble hat. Also, you should be aware that some suspects are actually scared of the cops. One look at a sheriff's badge will have them pooping their pants and putting their hands up. Take the car full of crooks these troopers are tracking down. They're just about to come into view up ahead, and within 5 seconds of seeing the Fritch Police Department on their tail, they've blown a tyre and crashed into a fire hydrant. So remember, sometimes you don't need reinforcements or firepower. Just a fire hydrant will do. Class dismissed. And finally, in Columbus, Ohio, we meet a drink driver with a difference. This suspect has been trying to steal some wheels all day, and although he managed it in the end, it wasn't the most conventional of carjackings. As he was trying to intimidate her, the driver ran him down. He went onto the bonnet, through the windscreen and straight into the driver's seat. So once he'd elbowed her out of the way, the van was his for the taking. Knocking someone over and then immediately having her car stolen must have come as a bit of a shock, but the woman still managed to call the cops. And now Lieutenant Vincent and Sergeant Gockstetter are tracking the thief down. It can get pretty breezy without a windscreen though, and it looks like he's had enough fun for one day, as he indicates to turn right and heads for the nearest field. But what is it that makes this guy so special? It's not his name, his age, his gender, or his religion. It's not even his criminal record. This guy has just got some very peculiar priorities, which, as far as we can tell, go something like this. Priority number 1, beer. Priority number 2, beer. And priority 3, well, I'm sure you get the idea. Yes, he's stolen a car, been run over and driven in a high-speed chase, all without spilling a drop of the amber nectar. He isn't going to let the small matter of surrendering spoil the fun either, and drinks up his beer as he's putting up his hands. So now we know why American cars need so many cup holders, and I'm guessing that this one's got a refrigerator as well. So what have we learnt today on Cops Uncut? Don't start a car chase in the rush hour. You can't trust a woman driver, particularly if she's only 13.
I don't think you would drive an truck.
And a roomy interior is essential for any vehicle. Be careful out there.